Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Woodsaw Rituals. Today, I wanted to start these two pages off with a Rorschach type of background, where we do our familiar color splatters, but then I shut the pages in on themselves to make a mirrored pattern on each side. Then, as per usual, I just pick things out of the shapes and start to think of what I want to draw on these pages. And for this one, I saw some shapes that resembled large moths. So I looked up some moths that are local to Arizona, and I landed on the Electra Buck Moth. These strikingly beautiful moths are native to the Southwest United States and Baja California. They can have a wingspan of up to 3 inches. And for a moth with these bold colors, I feel like that's a pretty good size. They're known for their vivid orange and red hind wings and their bold black and white forewings. These moths have just one brood that emerges in September to November. Most other moths are active in the summertime, making them the perfect moth to live in the Southwest United States. Now, the adults do not last very long. They only have one thing on their mind. They last long enough to find a mate and lay eggs. They don't even eat, which is crazy. The females lay their eggs on dried flower heads in the late fall so the caterpillars can emerge in the spring. The flowering plants that I chose to draw are the flat-top buckwheat plants. I chose these because these are what the caterpillars survive off of and what the female lays the eggs on. So this is their main food source. Hence the name Electra Buck Moth. The flat-top buckwheat plant, also known as California buckwheat, is a powerhouse of the Southwest ecosystem. It is completely unrelated to the buckwheat that's used to make pancakes, though. It's known as a keystone species for insects. Now, obviously, the Electra Buck Moth larva is an exclusive tenant on this plant, but so are several rare and localized butterflies. And because it blooms continuously through the brutal heat of the Southwest, it is the most important native source of honey in the Southwest. It is of the utmost high value to bees and beekeepers. They have these beautiful bright pink blooms that cluster together. This really is such a cool, unassuming native plant. Here I'm laying down that vibrant red color on the hind wings and body. I'm using a color that I mixed with watered down acrylics. Even their tiny little heads have this vibrant color on them. And after looking at several pictures online of these moths, I noticed that the circles on their wings have a yellow dot on the inside. So I used a bright yellow Grabie marker for these. For the white markings on the little tuft behind their heads and their forewings, I'm just going to use a Prismacolor pencil. marker I'm using here is a Chartpath Warm Gray number 4. And I wanted to use this one just to thicken up those dark pattern lines on the wings and body segments. The only 2 markers that I'm using on these 2 pages are Grabie Markers and Chartpath Markers. And I will include a link in the description of this video for both of those markers. The Grabie Markers are kind of my favorite right now. Before that it was Copic, but for whatever reason, Grabie Markers are my jam right now. But the Chartpath Markers are great for shading and adding to any dark lines and whatnot. So if you're interested in getting any of these markers, there'll be a link for you in the description. Well, now I think is probably a good time to check in with Herman. Fair warning, it's kind of gross. He is still shedding, which is crazy. I feel like he's been shedding for months now. But now it's on the tip of his nose and in his nostril holes, which makes it difficult for him to breathe. So sometimes he needs a little help getting that out. All right. Herman is shedding more, and this might be kind of gross, but pretty necessary for him. Almost. There. Look at that. Pretty gross. But this happens every time, doesn't it, buddy? Every time. Bet you can breathe better now. Oh, that's gone. Stop bugging you. Boop, boop. Poor little dude. One of these days he'll stop shedding. Right, it is time for the final step, which is adding that last layer of micron pen to everything. Now for next week, I am going to continue to draw these moths, but also their larvae or caterpillars, because they do look really cool, and there is some equally cool folklore behind them, which I will not get into in this episode. I'm going to save that for next week's episode. But the larvae look pretty crazy too. They're covered in these hollow, venom-filled spines that can cause severe stinging, burning, and itching. This is such a cool species of moth to like randomly fall on and choose to draw and do some research on. This is one of the reasons that I love making these videos so much. I get to learn more about all the cool things that live in this desert I call home. So thank you for checking out this video. Hopefully you learned something new today about a cool species of moth. If you could do me a favor and hit that like button and leave a comment, I would greatly appreciate it. And if you want to see more videos from me, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. that's going to do it for these 2 pages in my sketchbook. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week. Wolfman, take us home.
Alright, mother truckers, I've got one album recommendation for you before we part ways. This week I've been listening to some devastatingly heavy death doom from Portland, Oregon's Dispossessed with their album Democide. Now this album came out in 2025, but I got to see Dispossessed at Northwest Terror Fest in May. This was my introduction to the band, and needless to say, they killed it live. So if you're a fan of slow, plodding, bone-crushing guitar riffs and guttural death metal vocals, then give this album a listen. There's a link in the description of this video to their Bandcamp page. So go give Dispossessed some love. Alright, that's it for me, folks. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Goodbye.